Greetings, sisters and brothers. This is Milton Alimadi, publisher of Black Star News, adjunct professor of African history at John Jay College here in New York City. This is my coronavirus diary number 7. And today, once again, I want to talk about the murder of George Floyd by those bandits who were posing as police officers in Minneapolis. Those were outright bandits, terrorists. No trained police officer would act the way the murderer of George Floyd acted. And the 3 accomplices, 2 of them pinned him down and one stood there preventing bystanders from trying to intervene in that murder. But I want to focus my comments on what is to be done. We cannot afford to have episodic rage and protests and uprisings. We need concrete measures to be taken to end this outrage once and for all in every police department in the United States. So I have a couple of suggestions. They're not unique. Many people have spoken about them, but I think they need to be repeated. I think number 1, police departments should end this rule they have, which allows officers not to speak to investigators after egregious incidents. In New York, it's called the 48-hour rule. Officers get up to 2 days without being obligated to speak to investigators if they're involved in an incident that ends up with a civilian being dead, an unarmed person being dead. That's just unconscionable. It's supposedly to allow them to retain a lawyer. You don't need 2 days. They have huge, powerful unions. They can get good lawyers within a matter of hours. So that rule needs to go. Police departments need to eliminate their propaganda department. Police should not be in the business of disseminating false information to the public as well as to the media. I'll give you an example. Here in New York, for example, in 2014, after the execution of Eric Garner by Daniel Pantaleo of the New York Police Department, who strangled him to death with his arm. The first story that appeared in the New York Times on July 17, 2014, no mention of the chokehold, none at all. And if the video had not materialized, that would have been the story, the propaganda sent to the New York Times by the police department. The Times article spoke about Garner being 300 pounds. They said he died when he had a cardiac arrest when he was being placed under arrest. He had a heart attack. And that was it. So it means had the video not appeared that showed this brutal bandit pretending to be a police officer killing Eric Garner, we wouldn't have known what really happened. So police department must stop acting like the public information units in police departments must cease acting as propaganda units. And that needs to be monitored by some independent entity, whether it's the state attorneys generals in all these states. Something needs to happen, because it means that many past cases where there was egregious misconduct, outright murder, the propaganda departments or police departments spun it into a different story. So that needs to be dealt with. Officers that commit egregious crimes should be arrested immediately. It took 4 days before Derek Chauvin was arrested in Minneapolis. In fact, he was only arrested after the uprising started and some buildings were burned. So that needs to go. Need to be arrested immediately. If a civilian committed such a heinous crime, it would not take 4 days to have them arrested. So that needs to go. That preference and double standard also needs to go. Local district attorneys cannot prosecute police officers that commit egregious crimes. Why? Because district attorneys work closely with police departments to successfully prosecute cases. The police do the arrest, and then they work together to make sure that if the person is indeed guilty, is efficiently prosecuted and convicted. So they need each other, right? So you need to take it away from that realm and have either a special prosecutor or the state attorney general. And we see that in Minnesota, for example, with Keith Ellison. The attorney general in that state is very actively involved in the prosecution of Derek Chauvin and those 3 accomplice bandits that killed George Floyd. So that also needs to be dealt with. And we saw how in New York with Daniel Pantaleo, he was not even indicted, right? The same thing in Ferguson with the district attorney there, McCulloch, whose father had been a police department officer who was killed apparently in the line of duty. So obviously there was a conflict of interest there. And that's why Darren Wilson was not, you never entered a courtroom to be tried for the killing of Michael Brown in 2014 as well. So that needs to be dealt with. We need to weed out racists from the police departments. And some of them are known. Some of them have tattoos on their body. Some of them in their conversations must be known. So their colleagues must have a way to anonymously report that there is a racist in my department, in this unit. Whether the report goes to the state attorney generals, whether you send it to newspapers that cover police misconduct closely, Black Star News, our publication. If you want to send us information, more than happy to deal with it. mallimadi@gmail.com. MALLIMADI@gmail.com. That's my email address. Let's get rid of outright racists. You want to be a racist in the privacy of your home, but you don't get to wear a uniform and get a badge and carry a gun and fulfill your racist agenda by killing innocent Black people. So that needs to be dealt with, weeding out these racists. After an officer is convicted of an egregious crime, I think they ought to lose their pension. If they lose their pension, I think that is a severe and serious deterrent. I'm willing to bet you will see these numbers of egregious. You think Derek Chauvin would have been sitting there with that smirk on his face, killing Floyd, if he knew that his pension, in fact, he wasn't even worried about his pension because he knew that the department would cover for him. That's what he assumed, right? And that's why he committed that shocking murder. So that needs to be dealt with as well. They need to lose their pension. The cities are settling these cases for millions and millions of dollars from taxpayer. Why? Because some racist wants to fulfill his agenda? No. That's how that needs to be dealt with as well. The body cameras. If a police officer tampers with his body camera, they need to be fired immediately. They can only tamper with the body camera if they want to hide egregious action. Another thing that needs to be done, when the body camera is activated, the images should be beamed to hard drives directly at police headquarters. What else? Community policing. Community policing is very, very critical. You don't see officers being recruited from Harlem or Bed-Stuy to go and police suburban neighborhoods, right? No. People that police the community should be people with roots in the community, people who live there or who have solid roots and connections, right? Now we have officers coming from the suburbs to police the so-called inner cities. Many of them come with the attitude, it's us against them. I just want to go home alive, meaning they're predisposed to taking a confrontational attitude. So by doing this, we're actually helping them as well. You should not police a place that you don't want to police in the first place. So we need to deal with that as well. I think that is probably my 9th suggestion. The 10th suggestion that I'm making, I'm already seeing a lot of that actually. European Americans must become much more involved in denouncing these police crimes and join in these protests, putting pressure on elected officials. I'm very happy to see that. so many young European Americans and adults as well have joined the nationwide protest following the execution of George Floyd. So those are my 10 suggestions. Thank you, sisters and brothers. Stay strong, stay Pan-African. May the Creator be with you.